Greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing climate change, abrupt climate change, things adjacent. It's really raining very hard here in Southern California. It's, buckets and buckets and buckets of rain, causing a lot of mayhem, as you might imagine. Because people in Southern California especially do not know how to deal with it. They lose their minds on many levels. So, in my experience, when I used to travel all the time playing music, I realized after a couple of years that people who don't experience weather can't deal with it on any level. So the best places to be were places where people always had extreme weather, and they shrugged it off, right? So I stopped traveling in the South during the winter, because anytime they had any kind of winter weather, whole cities shut down, and they would close all the roads, and everybody would freak out, and they'd cancel all the shows. And then I realized, okay, the place to be in the wintertime is actually north, Detroit, Chicago, Ohio, where they're just, oh, we got a foot of snow, whatever, no canceled shows. People still driving around. They didn't close the city down. They just, they went on life as usual. So, so Southern California, of course, people here are just like, oh my God, it's not 70 degrees and sunny. What do we do? First world problems, of course. Getting into some news today. This is from Popular Science. Climate change is cooking salmon in the Pacific Northwest. Warmer waters in the Pacific Northwest are killing salmon before they can reproduce. Having a little bit of a difficult time talking today, sorry. The Tulalip Indian Reservation sits on the east side of the Puget Sound, about 40 miles north of Seattle, Washington, where the change in seasons is marked by the arrival and departure of salmon. At the heart of the reservation is Tulalip Bay, where salmon return every spring and fall before swimming upstream to spawn. In tribal folklore, the Tulalip people are descended from salmon. As Carrie Williams, who works at the tribe's cultural center, tells the story, the ancient salmon saw people walking on land and wanted to become human. When they asked the grandfather salmon to give them human form, he granted their wish and told them, I will take care of you, but you must take care of me. But it has become increasingly difficult for the Tulalip people to care for the salmon. Since the 1980s, wild Pacific salmon have faced a sharp decline due to overfishing, habitat loss, and pollution, leaving several local populations threatened or endangered. Now climate change is further imperiling the fish. Recent summers in the Pacific Northwest have been beset by record heat, and higher water temperatures are killing the adult salmon before they can reproduce. Pacific salmon are anadromous. I think I'm pronouncing that wrong, meaning they spend their juvenile years in freshwater streams and rivers before moving on to estuaries, and then in their adult years, the open ocean. Adults return to the streams where they were born at the end of their lives to spawn. Extreme heat has made this journey particularly treacherous. The biggest issues we've had are the warm summers, said Trevor Jennison, who manages the Wallace River State Hatchery in Washington State. Salmon don't like warm water. They're a cold water fish. Once we start getting up past 65 degrees, they're still okay, but we start running into disease issues. So Timothy has been commenting a lot about this in the comment section. He's in Oregon. Lots of problems with salmon, dying and not spawning because of warm river waters. And also there are other problems. Sea lions, I think, are attacking the salmon. So what happens is the Washington Department of Fish and Game does not track the number of fish who make it to spawning grounds, but die before they can reproduce. However, hatchery workers say they have seen more and more adult fish perish in stream beds before they can spawn. It's not just the heat that is threatening fish. Dwindling winter snowpack has deprived the rivers and streams where salmon spawn of a key source of water. With lower water levels and higher water temperatures, it makes it a lot harder for them to find safe spaces to survive until they're ready to spawn, said Ashley Caldwell, a fisheries biologist for the Tulalip tribes, who explained that increased rain in cooler months is making life difficult for the salmon as well. Climate change has created much higher rains in the fall and winter months that wipe out their spawning grounds, he said. It's not ideal. It's not the constant rain that we're used to here in Washington. It's these monsoon type rains that we're getting. Everything's getting thrown out of whack. That's all I'm going to read of this article, and I'm going to move on because I have other things to cover. But I'm going to link this below. Here's an article from the Huff Post. McConnell, that's Mitch, old turtle boy. McConnell trolls Democrats by pledging a vote on the Green New Deal. Trolls. How is he trolling? The GOP senator is apparently betting the resolution will prove too radical for a good number of Democrats. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell promised on Tuesday that he would allow a vote on the Green New Deal, the climate and energy proposal advanced by progressives that is meant to address the threat of climate change. I've noted with great interest the Green New Deal, and we're going to be voting on that in the Senate. Give everybody an opportunity to go on record and see how they feel about the Green New Deal, McConnell told reporters at a press conference on Capitol Hill. The Green New Deal resolution unveiled last Thursday is non-binding measure meant to define the scope of what future legislation requires to make a serious dent in surging greenhouse gas emissions. The document calls for zeroing out emissions by generating as close to 100% of the nation's electricity as possible from renewables over the next decade and ramping up manufacturing of clean energy technologies and electric vehicles to decarbonize other sectors. By sanctioning a vote, McConnell appears to be betting that the resolution will prove too radical for a good number of Democrats, let alone any Republicans. While a number of Senate Democrats have endorsed the Green New Deal, including some who have declared presidential bids for 2020, others have exercised more caution when asked if they would support the measure. Interesting. So they're going to attempt to kind of kill it by taking a vote on it and voting it down and then saying, okay, that's enough of that. Although I actually want them to do this because I think that they might be surprised by the results. I think there might be a surprise like endorsement for the Green New Deal, or at least a very close vote. I was watching Jimmy Dore the other day, and was it Fox News? I think it was Fox News put up a poll about Medicare. They've been banging on Medicare for all. So Fox News, now is calling everybody on the left, commies, and AOC is a commie, and they're all, just trying to just shoot down everything, every proposal is some socialist pie in the sky or whatever, socialist fantasy. So anyways, they took a poll about Medicare for all, and I guess like something like 70% of the viewers voted in favor of Medicare for all. They were like, yes, we want this. And of course they had to take it down. So, watch out for these polls that you think will shoot down ideas that you think people don't want or don't support. It's unclear exactly what kind of measure McConnell plans to bring up for a vote in the Senate. A spokesman for the majority leader told HuffPost on Tuesday that he will not be writing his own legislation to address the threat posed by global warming. Of course he won't. There's all kinds of problems with the Green New Deal, of course. We know this. Here's a stupid quote from Republican Senator John Barrasso. There's another victim of the Green New Deal. It's ice cream. Livestock will be banned. Say goodbye to dairy, to beef, to family farms, to ranches. American favorites like cheeseburgers and milkshakes will become a thing of the past. It's un-American, this Green New Deal. Yeah. Yeah, so is the death of hundreds of millions of people. That's pretty un-American. Stupid people. I really don't like the policy of taking away your car or taking away your airplane rights, President Donald Trump said at a rally in El Paso, Texas. Yeah, we want these things. We deserve them because we're ridiculous human beings who don't understand that these are the things that may kill us all. Anyways, whatever. Moving on to a glimmer, far away glimmer of some kind of positivity and hope. Senate passes sweeping public lands bill protecting 2 million acres. So there you go. The Senate, Republican-controlled Senate, passes a bill protecting 2 million acres. The U.S. Senate on Tuesday voted overwhelmingly in support of a bipartisan public lands bill that safeguards more than 2 million federal acres and permanently reauthorizes the Popular Land and Water Conservation Fund, established in 1964 to protect natural areas and water resources. Measure, which includes more than 100 individual pieces of legislation, is said to be the largest public lands package in a decade. It establishes more than 1.3 million acres of new wilderness, protects hundreds of miles of rivers and trails, and creates 4 new national monuments. This is not only lands, this is water, this is sportsmen, this is conservation, this is about developing local economies. Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski in Alaska, who co-introduced the bill with Senator Maria Cantwell, Democrat from Washington, said during a press conference following the vote, this is about who we are as a country. Well, there you go. The package also expands 5 national parks, including Death Valley and Joshua Tree, and withdraws more than 300,000 federal acres from future mining, as the Washington Post reports. So I also saw, it's somewhere buried in my queue. Somebody, was it, I think Earth Anarchist sent me an article about their, maybe I'm getting this wrong, but they're actually protecting some Alaskan wilderness area. They are not going to allow oil exploration or oil drilling in this Alaska wilderness. So some positive signs on the horizon. The public lands bill stands in stark contrast to the Trump administration's agenda over the last 2 years, along with the 2019 budget request that called for the slashing LWCF by roughly 95% to a budget of less than $9 million. The administration led the largest rollback of national monuments in history and has worked tirelessly to boost fossil fuel and mineral development on federal lands and waters. So not all the senators and representatives are in support of leadership of Trump and Republican leadership or even Democratic leadership. So bring on this vote around the Green New Deal. I think that there might be a lot more support than these clueless morons, if I may, crib something from Hambone, the clueless folks at the top who think that they can just continue this propaganda about socialism, it's un-American. We just need more capitalism. Screw the environment. Like there's a lot more awareness around the fact that we are heading into dark times if we don't do something about this. So, as flawed as the Green New Deal is, bring it on. Bring on the votes. At least bring on the conversation, so that we can get past the initial conversation of like, okay, we have this problem, we need to do something about it, and then we can have the conversation about, well, this isn't what we want to do. This is actually what we want to do. But you have to get through the first step first. Moving on to the last thing I wanted to read today from Truth Out. This is a few days old, February 11th. This is by Darja Mail, entitled "The World is on the Brink of Widespread Water Wars." My friend Mark Oates, a farmer in Australia, recently sent this note to me. Last night, I looked through the Bureau of Meteorology app at the monthly rainfall figures for January and temperatures. A region around Byron Lismore has had 1.6% of average rainfall for January and is 2.6 degrees warmer than average. 98.4% less rain than normal, virtually nothing, and hence the people, plant, and animal food pressures growing. Then looking further across all capital cities and major regions, everywhere is down on average rainfall except just one area, North Queensland. And that is only due to some late January flooding rains. Melbourne, 9.7% of normal rainfall. Adelaide, 0%. Perth, 43.1%. Hobart, 0.8%. Sydney, 47.7%. Brisbane, 17.9% of normal rainfall. After North Queensland, the next best is Western Sydney and Wollongong at around 70% of average normal rainfall. All of them well over average heat temperatures, in many cases around 2 C degrees. Canberra is 6.3 C degrees above average for January. Good God. Hobart is 4.2 C degrees above normal and is at less than 1% of normal rainfall. Armidale, the region where we are, is about 80% of normal rainfall, but is a whopping 5.4 C degrees above normal temperatures, averaging 32.2 for January with 26.8 normal average. Even the average minimum is 2 C degrees higher than normal. So there you go. Stats and figures to show how extreme it is all over the country right now and why fish, bats, chickens, and insects are dying. Vegetable growers are plowing crops into the ground, unable to afford to buy water anymore. And cattle and sheep farmers are destocking, unable to feed them. Destocking. Degrowth. Now as we move into February, the hottest month of the year, and no real rain forecast anywhere south of the tropics. Given the Arctic realities and the looming blue ocean event, once the Arctic once the Arctic loses its summer sea ice, at which point global climate and weather patterns become profoundly destabilized, possibly as soon as 2022, things are really going to amplify. Likely, we will look back on January 2019 as when it was moderate and easy compared to the challenging heat and drought on the way. Mark his words, should be a call to attention. Sorry, that was really bad. And a call to action. The plight of farmers in Australia illustrates a larger reality. As planetary temperatures continue to increase and rainfall patterns shift due to human-caused climate disruption, our ability to grow crops and have enough drinking water will become increasingly challenged, and the outlook is only going to worsen. We have been warned. The most recent United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report warned of increasingly intense droughts and mass water shortages around large swaths of the globe. But even more conservative organizations have been sounding the alarm. Water insecurity could multiply the risk of conflict, warns one of the World Bank's reports on the issue. Food price spikes caused by droughts can inflame latent conflicts and drive migration. And where economic growth is impacted by rainfall, episodes of droughts and floods have generated waves of migration and spikes in violence within countries. In some places, conflict is practically guaranteed. Meanwhile, a study published in the journal Global Environmental Change looked at how hydropolitical issues, including tensions and potential conflicts, could play out in countries expected to experience water shortages coupled with high populations and pre-existing geopolitical tensions. The study warned that these factors could combine to increase the likelihood of water-related tensions, potentially escalating into armed conflict in cross-boundary river basins in places around the world by 74.9 to 95%. This means that in some places, conflict is practically guaranteed. These areas include regions situated around primary rivers in Asia and North Africa. Noted rivers include the Tigris and Euphrates, the Indus, the Nile, and the Ganges, Brahmaputra. Consider the fact that 11 countries share the Nile River basin: Egypt, Burundi, Kenya, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Uganda, Rwanda, Sudan, South Sudan, Tanzania, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. All told, more than 300 million people already live in these countries, a number that is projected to double in the coming decades. That's not going to happen. It's interesting when they talk about population going to, what population is going to go over here? 10 billion people. Nah, it's not going to happen because we don't have the resources for that to happen. It's just not going to happen. Most likely the reverse will happen. A number of that is, anyways, for those in the U.S. thinking these potential conflicts will occur in distant lands, think again. The study also warned of a high chance of these hydropolitical interactions in portions of the southwestern U.S. and northern Mexico around the Colorado River, India, and Pakistan. Potential tensions are particularly worrisome in India and Pakistan, which are already rivals when it comes to water resources. For now, these two countries have an agreement, albeit a strained one, over the Indus River and the sharing of its water by way of the 1960 Indus Water Treaty. However, water claims have been central to their ongoing burning dispute over the Kashmir region, a flashpoint area there for more than 60 years and counting. The aforementioned treaty is now more strained than ever, as Pakistan accuses India of limiting its water supply and violating the treaty by placing dams over various rivers that flow from Kashmir into Pakistan. In fact, a 2018 report from the International Monetary Fund ranked Pakistan third among countries facing severe water shortages. This is largely due to the rapid melting of glaciers in the Himalaya that are the source of much of the water from the Indus. To provide an idea of how quickly water resources are diminishing in both countries, statistics from Pakistan's Islamabad Chamber of Commerce and Industry from 2018 show that water availability per capita in cubic meters per year shrank from 5,260 in 1951 to 940 in 2015 and are projected to shrink to 860 by just 2025. Yeah. In India, the crisis is hardly better, according to the country's Ministry of Statistics 2016 and the Indian Ministry of Water Resources 2010. The per capita available water in cubic meters per year was 5,177 in 1951 and 1,474 in 2015, and is projected to shrink to 1,341 in 2025. Both of these countries are nuclear powers. Given the dire projections of water availability as climate change progresses, nightmare scenarios of water wars that could spark nuclear exchanges are now becoming possible. As if to underscore all of this, even the U.S. military recently warned that climate change is a worldwide threat. The military's worldwide threat assessment report warned that climate change and other types of environmental degradation threatened global stability because they are likely to fuel competition for resources, economic distress, and social discontent through 2019 and beyond. And that is the end of that. And remember, I had talked about this before, but in the movie The Big Short, the guy, the protagonist, one of the protagonists, who bet against the mortgage bubble and won. So he retired from that kind of speculation, and he, I guess, put all his money down on water. So here's this incredibly intelligent economic kind of forecaster who saw the writing on the wall, who saw what was happening, and when everybody else didn't, and made a killing in the last recession betting against all these mortgage futures. And so his big bet after that is water. And there are other people, I am sure, who are betting on the same thing, and probably not as well publicized. Those folks who are quietly betting on water being so scarce. I'm also thinking of an Octavia Butler book. If any of you are familiar with her writing, she's, probably in the top three writers for me. But she has quite a few stories about near future dystopias, and I don't know if it's Parable of the Sower. I think I'm getting the story wrong, but she has one story about a near future scenario where water is, something like a couple $100 a gallon, and one of the most prized resources in the near future, when people are set adrift from cities because they're collapsing and they're just turning into just war zones. People live behind barricades, right? So people, we have these collapses happening, and then people set out on foot to try and find safe spaces to live. And water is an extremely valuable resource, something to think about for your prepping or planning in the near future. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. Happy Valentine's Day to anybody that cares. I don't know, whatever. Some people out there, hope you're have something to celebrate, or are celebrating if you care. If not, whatever. Have a good day. Until next time, peace.